I know it's between me and the last hurdle before you have your break, so I'm going to try to be as fast as I can with the information that I'd like to share today. I'm lucky enough to work with some great research teams at Noblis surrounding our core strengths, where we use a lot of data analytics and data science techniques around a lot of different areas like bio, life sciences, environmental sciences, and cyber, obviously, to move our lab to mission approach very quickly to get something into the hands of an analyst. So I've been fortunate enough to work on some programs where I've looked, and I'd like to share some of our platform in our cyber defense that we call Artemis, which is the goddess of the hunt. And how are we using this platform to actually focus on the analyst and create something for them to get to an answer faster? So what we see across the board when I'm looking is that a lot of our customer bases have the exact same issues. And the bottom line is they spend a tremendous amount of time triaging and sifting through data, and instead of actually doing the analysis of it. So how do they get the information? The analysts spend a majority of their time just getting the data together. And they're pulling it from multiple different tools, and then it's very hard to organize a lot of that data. Once they start these investigations, it's really hard, especially when they get to the end of, well, how did I get this piece of information? How did I track this inquiry? How did I do this? How can I do this again? And they're not really able to recreate those steps unless it's in a report or something like that. Mr. Johnson just pointed out something very key, is that as you pursue an investigation, you get to the point in the end, and it becomes a waste of time and it's not productive, that the line of inquiry that you were pursuing just led to a dead end or wasn't something that that needed to be researched during the organization. There's also many different tools within an organization and a lot of the licensing where an analyst needs a lot of data, but they might not have that data source, or they may not know that they even have it to get that information. And some organizations see a lot of operational security issues. So like if I was to go out and do some open source research, that might show my hand to an adversary that I'm researching this. So how do we do that effectively, and then also allow our analysts to get the amount of information that they're doing? And this is kind of the process that we see. We see these disparate steps where the analyst has to work at each point and step, and they're involved in each part along the way. A lot of this creates a lot of manual searches and the static results that come out of that as they look at the data and collect their report and then look inside of their data. See a lot of analysts doing very simple things and then also very advanced things where they're doing a lot of data science work. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But most of these disparate activities move as you move on from one to the other, and you correlate that information inside with your threat intel. It's all a different step, and a lot of times we see people take that data from one source and move to the next with an Excel spreadsheet. And it's very hard to get the data to all come into one tool. And what we see overall is that with different mission types across multiple organizations, you have individuals and your analysts are just doing a lot of manual querying. It takes a lot of time to get things back. They're producing results, but they're really starting to produce results, and they're doing very manual processes, and then they have to leave because they're at their end of their assignment. So trying to move that analyst to produce results to the left a little bit. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what our approach is. Our goal was really to create a platform that an analyst can ID things quickly and reduce any type of impact or vulnerability and minimize that within the organization. We have a very analyst-centric approach where we feel that the most valuable asset that you have within your organization is the analyst, and the analysts need a better approach to start looking at some of the things that they're doing. We are trying to build the platform that we have to automate a lot of the querying of all the services that they have and provide them with an enrichment service so they can make informed decisions, because they're not data scientists and they spend a lot of their time doing a lot of those activities. And how we built this platform is we do the platform in an open source area. This enables a lot of things to happen on premise and use a lot of the investments and tools that you've already put in place. And we tie and hook into those things. Noblis also has a very rigid security dev operations process. We can quickly get the platform and the components into production very quickly. So what this particular platform and using that analyst-centric approach, what we have is we're able to integrate a lot of data sources with a common enrichment service. And what that does is moves the analyst over to the other side where they're not doing all of those things. It simplifies the process overall, where all of those data sources and information are able to pull into one place. And you see more advanced analytics and analysis being done, like threat hunting, and then creating additional IOCs when you start seeing some correlation points. And that creates more advanced analysts in the very beginning, where a lot of the manual functions are turning into automated functions that allows the analyst to become more effective in moving towards a better outcome overall. So I'd like to talk about our architecture. Most of our analysts are no longer having direct access to the data itself. They're using some visualization tools, and it depends on the mission what kind of visualization tool that is. So we do this in 4 basic steps. Our engine that we use in this platform, it simplifies the queries. So analysts are no longer using the data science languages that they typically use to do a lot of their queries now with large data platforms. So we take away the need for an analyst to know Kibana or know Lucene language or know SQL. R, Spark, Hadoop, even Splunk queries are done through the enrichment engine, and you're able to connect to those data sources directly. Direct access to the data sources. We have also helped prioritize and quickly have very, very fast, rapid searches where we can sift through a lot of data very, very quickly. Some of our test areas that we were able to do this, we have large in the petabyte range data sources with additional data sources that are about half a petabyte or 500 terabytes. We're about 10 terabytes of streaming data. And we're able to sift through that and actually get results from each of those in a single place very quickly, sometimes within milliseconds of a return, so that either an analytic itself or an analyst can decide what they need to search next. And they're not wasting their time waiting for a very complicated SQL query or R query to come back. A direct access allows them to very quickly get that information that they need, and they can do simple queries on their side. This also allows us to introduce some open source tools. We can use tools that you have within your organization. We also source about 600 open source entities, and we have a database that we've been collecting for about 2 years. We get about 60 million records a day in that database, and we keep that historically so that allows us to move forward and allow an analyst to take a look and say, well, this is what I know about this thing. It was good on this day. It was bad on that day. This engine within the Artemis piece, it also captures all of the steps that it takes for an analyst to get to point A to point B and all of the information that they receive within that so that they can download that and share it. And the engine can also start taking a look at those queries and decide what steps to take away from a manual process and introduce into a more automated fashion. And then just interacting with the other tools, we can quickly introduce new analytics and other things as well. So I want to talk about some of the examples that we see is that our original approach was to create correlation graphs between data points. And all of the data is coming from the same specific engine. And what we have here is with the platform integration is that some organizations need to see things in one way and some organizations need to see them in another. So the first example just shows entity relationships between some IP addresses and then kind of gives it a bit of a score on the side to say, I think this may be good or bad, but we provide all of that information back to the analyst to use their own intuition to decide what needs to happen. There's a lot of data on the back end of the graph. It's very nice for the visualization. But we also realize that for specific missions and problems, a lot of individuals don't want to see it in that way. So we were able to create another way to see the data. And I just did a simple search for a single IP address. Here you can see all of our data sources as they provide that information into one specific place for an analyst to look at. So we're correlating open source intelligence at this point in time, license searches. We're also pulling in ticket information because we have a hook to an API that does service tickets. We also pull data from multiple databases and data sources that were collected inside of an organization to see that. So you can see that there's a lot of information in one place for an analyst to start taking a look at. And so what does this mean overall? Well, we're hoping, and what we're seeing is that once we start putting some of these things in place, we're able to accelerate the time to action by an analyst, and they become a lot more effective at doing their job of analyzing and not just doing data collection and querying language and using querying language to try to figure out if something even occurred within the organization. We're also seeing that as we move the effectiveness of an analyst more to the left, that we start seeing more advanced things happening where automation, machine learning refinement, and then some advanced techniques for analysis start to happen within an organization as they become more effective throughout the lifetime of their mission. So going back to one of the first slide, how do we achieve this? We're looking at some of the benefits of the analysis. What we're trying to do is accelerate the time to actionable intelligence for an analyst. And we do that by simplifying the queries and reducing the amount of time they spend doing that so that they can really focus on the analysis and the things that they want to do. We're able to pull in multiple databases of information, whether we're fusing that data with in-house and collection platforms that are there. We can pull all of that into one place for an analyst to take a look at instead of going to multiple places. We also automatically track all of that history and sharing, and we can provide that information back to the analyst, or we can feed that back into a machine learning application to learn how it can automate things. I'd rather not want to do the queries myself. I'd rather want that query to be done for me overnight so that when I get in the morning, it will tell me whether or not it's doing that. And also, how fast can we get to an answer? So if something hot came off the press and I need to know if it hit my network, we can provide answers very quickly and provide a lot of context around that information as well. So I'd like to thank everybody for their time and listening to me today. If you have any questions, would like to know a little bit more about our tool and our product, you can please contact us through the email address provided on the slide. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. And we do have a couple questions that come in. If you still have time to answer a few here, is that okay?
Yeah, I know that everybody wants a coffee break, so yeah, well, I'm here and available.
Yeah, let's spend a few minutes on them, and we'll still have enough time to stretch our legs. One that came in, you stress the importance of giving analysts better data to move to actionable insights, and that sort of fits into this broader theme of moving smart humans to higher value work across government. Is there does this tool also sort of broaden the access to allow people who are not specialists to be more involved in this, or is it really focused on the core analysts and empowering that?
So we find that you can get a lot of people involved in an organization very quickly. So you may have someone who is more junior and not an advanced analyst, and they can still be productive to a point. Because we can save a lot of the queries. If I was running an investigation, but I don't have time to look through the results, I could provide that information to a lower tier individual and say, I would like you to do steps 1 through 3. Here's the recipe, here's the outline, because I tracked all of these investigations. And if you find anything valuable, you can then let me know at step 4. That takes away a lot of the time I need to sift through those things, and you kind of introduce tiered analysis at that point in time, which can allow individuals that aren't as skilled to actually be effective within the workplace.
Great, thank you. And this question is a related one. It's not about the tool per se, but I think you're in a good position to answer it. One of the audience members said, "I'm a neophyte and want to gain relevant experience as a cyber analyst. How does one start a career, and how many years does it take to gain the relevant experience?"
I think it depends on the mission itself. Different organizations have different threats, depending on the type of thing that they need to adhere to. It could take many years, or it depends on if, but it could take a couple months. I think it also really has to do with the individual themselves and what.
Okay. Kyle, I'm sorry, you froze on me.
What their strive is,
Oh, there you go.
and if they have something that they can put in discipline in a domain that they're really looking for.
Very good. And another question that came in was, have you done efficiency analysis around user interface and workflow approaches in terms of improvement to MTTD and MTTR metrics?
I don't do a lot of metrics work, but I can talk about the platform that as we built a lot of the front end, because our focus was on the analysts themselves, we also have some user interface and user experience individuals that would sit with analysts to see what they needed. A lot of times, if they had more technical things, we would introduce ourselves as cybersecurity analysts with the team that I work with, and then translate those back so that we could create more efficiencies and allow the user experience to be more created, or just a better experience for them, and allow them to get their work done. As far, I can definitely follow up on that question about the metrics specifically once I can understand a little more information about them. But because we're saving a lot of the queries, we're also able to do metrics in analytics to see what they're actually doing and what an analyst is doing. And then we can take those steps overall and say, everybody's doing steps 1 through 3. From now on, we're just going to do that for you. So you're on step 4 now. And that collapses a lot of manual processes as well.
Okay. And final question before we go to the break. Agencies have spent a tremendous amount of money and maybe more importantly time assembling a wide array of systems for their cybersecurity and threat detection, threat analysis efforts. How flexible is this solution in integrating those existing tools and tailoring it to the other building blocks that an agency already has?
Yeah, we focused the tool to be extremely extensible. We focused also on creating hooks into tools that are already there. We know that organizations have created significant investments to get the data to the analyst. And there's a lot of great tools out there that already do a lot of indexing. They do querying. There's also a lot of great open source and paid for licenses and support. We focus on, for the data itself, we are able to connect to multiple different databases with the tool. We're also able to, because how extensible the API piece is, we're able to connect to other entities that have an API hook in. So if you have an indicator management tool, if you have a ticketing system, we can connect to several different of those. And we can also connect to a lot of open source tools as well. So or licensed tools. So as an example, we have hooks already in place for VirusTotal, domain tools, and a couple other like passive DNS and Risk IQ that allow us to get that information, because we find that a lot of our customers are using that. So anything that has an API, we can write a wrapper around something to have it part of our registry, so that you can hit that information and pull it in along with your own internal collected data, so you can perform analysis on it.
Excellent. Okay, well, I think we are going to leave it there, but I know you and some of your Noblis colleagues are available in the chat room if there are more specific questions people want to dig into there. But Kyle Forsyth, thanks for sharing the story today and helping us dig in.
All right, thank you for having me.